So welcome everybody, welcome to the Netherlands, welcome to the Faculty of Archaeology. Also welcome our online viewers as well via our YouTube channel. We're streaming everything at the moment. I wanted to give you guys a short recap on the session which David, Rocio and myself hosted in Glasgow last summer. And the session was hosted as a part of Theme D, as you might remember, which focuses solely on sustainability in archaeology, and on Theme E, which focuses on archaeological practices and community involvement in UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and therefore is in need of theoretical frameworks and examples of sustainable practice in archaeology, as was discussed in Berlin in spring 2014 by the Theme E partners, as some of you might remember. This session was one of the two activities on the to-do list, so to say, established in Berlin, and as such an important part of that discussion, research and collaboration. Although this session was organized from a Theme D and Theme E perspective, the topics seemed relevant for each theme in the program, and as such the session was communicated and organized under the overall NEARCH banner, meaning that everybody from the program was invited to join and participate. The session, though, was not exclusive to NEARCH partners. Others were able to send in papers as well, and some of them actually did and were included, as I'll show later. Unfortunately, not many of you were able to attend the session in Glasgow. However, I think since this was an important activity of the Theme E work group and as an initial discussion platform for our Theme D partners from Spain, I think it is important to what I'm going to say now, so shortly recap on the outcomes. So in total there were 8 papers accepted and included in the session, of which 6 were from our very own NEARCH partners, so that's good. David, Rocio and myself organized the order of the papers under 3 different teams. So the first 3 papers were grouped under general theoretical approaches, meaning that they covered the topic of sustainability from a theoretical viewpoint, and as such formed an obvious starting point for the session and the discussion later after the session. The second category was called social innovation and the creation of value, and comprised the following 3 papers, and focused on the creation and importance of social value in archaeology and archaeological heritage management. And the last category included the last 2 presentations, so presentations 7 and 8, and was focused on case studies in sustainability, meaning that those papers actually covered very practical, hands-on and inspirational examples of sustainable practices in archaeology. Based on those 3 categories I just showed you and 8 presentations, we, David, Rocio and me, were able to draw 4 conclusions, 4 important conclusions from the session, the topics, the discussion and the papers. The first is heritage and archaeology are politically and economically conditioned practices. Heritage is linked to sustainability. Sustainability of heritage is linked to its use as a social tool. And archaeology is linked to heritage, which is kind of obvious, but it's nice that we concluded that as well again. And let me explain why in the next few slides. The first one, in the intro of the session, David, Rocio and me contextualized the session. So we discussed the differences between the formal, institutional and critical viewpoints of sustainability and connected the concept with political international frameworks. And I then discussed the fact that sustainable practices are made up of 4 different pillars. So economical, political, ecological and, indeed, as I think, a cultural one. And I then argued that archaeology fits the cultural pillar, which in itself is comprised of 4 sub-pillars, namely social, economic, law and peace, and based this on the cultural-based development framework opted by Annie Tubaji. So that's a name you can write down. It's a very interesting paper. In his presentation, David contextualized the debate on sustainable practices in political and economic rather than scientific terms. His explanations started with stressing the incapability of archaeological heritage management to apply the Malta Convention to the letter, falling in the reification of the archaeological knowledge, a bureaucratization of the administrative process, and a commodification of the ways to exit this impasse, leaving Malta or changing Malta. He stood up for the validity of the Malta Convention, which tries to achieve more control over preventive archaeological politically, and thereby strengthening the heritage policies in order to face opportunities which come from factors and realms external to archaeology, and sees those as the only way to achieve the road to sustainability. Rocio's presentation covered the current situation of the professional sector and the necessity of rethinking the model, so to say, of archaeology promoted by Malta, and proposed new and sustainable activity models for the sector. Our Greek colleagues, Eleftheria and Kostas, illustrated the connection to politics by talking about a social survey in the neighborhood of Tumba. But she talked about this in Thessaloniki as well, right? Yeah. Carried out in the exact same way 20 years after the first one. And they discussed the differences between the first one, which was more conditioned for the symbolic fight regarding Macedonia, and the second one during the economic crisis, as well as discussing the social role of archaeology and its links to the political power and public perceptions. Yeah? Okay. Okay. The second thing, the second important conclusion, heritage is linked to sustainability. As an issue of connecting past and future, heritage is as a social field and social process is absolutely linked to sustainability. Sustainable practices and sustainable development, as it can be read or understood in terms of intergenerationality. So those are actually three different things: sustainability, sustainable practices, and sustainable development. Sarah Howard remarked the fact that archaeological heritage management discourse has been a social construct. And first she highlighted some changes inside this heritage management discourse from the 90s until now. Second, she introduced new concepts in the field of archaeological heritage management as sustainable conservation. During her presentation, she actually discussed various obvious questions inherent in topics such as sustainability in archaeology, like what makes something sustainable, or what are we applying sustainability for? And is it necessary to continue being critical of the discourse? Paul Burtonshaw and Larry Coben explained that the best way to preserve vulnerable archaeological sites is to make those sites assets for the local sustainable development. They argued that data is actually the key in order to understand the communicated project in terms of the interchange of approaches to sustainability and sustainable development with and within local communities, and thereby contributing to our understanding and applicability of the concept. Luckily, Paul agreed to do another presentation of this very interesting nexus between archaeological research and working with local communities later here today, or rather after this presentation, actually. Okay, the third conclusion. Sustainability of heritage is linked to its use as a social tool. Sustainability of heritage is linked to its use as a social tool for social change in terms of collective memory and identity, social cohesion, documental value, as a contested symbol, and as an economic and educational resource. Burtonshaw and Coben showed the current projects in Peru, as well as a couple projects in Jordan called Diepsal and Schep, in order to illustrate their approaches in working together with local communities, while still focusing on archaeological research. They showed Diepsal as a data collection through surveys, interviews, meetings, oral history projects, and active participation methodologies, and Schep as a community survey attempting to understand the value of the local sites, with a very interesting categorization. I hope you will speak about this after this presentation. But among the economic benefit, perceptions of ownership, responsibility, and conservation behaviors. Maria Pia and Antonella presented the first results of the European competition launched from NEARCH called Your Archaeology Portraying Your Past, a call for European citizens and new citizens. It was a very interesting way to see how people have contributed to the call and see some of the works as well. And this project provides new ways of understanding, I think, the engagement between public and archaeological heritage, and we will see some more of this later today. This is exciting stuff, I think. Okay, last one. Sustainability of archaeology as a social practice is absolutely linked to heritage in terms of production, emergence and use or misuse of heritage, and as such lies beyond its condition of a more or less sustainable practice in empirical or practical terms. We need to research how archaeological heritage is emerging and used in the social field. In this sense, Sarah Howard made a deconstruction, so to say, of the sustainability discourse, relating it to and into actually the archaeological heritage management discourse. Her analysis focused on the English context, but it was basically applicable to any other context in which the archaeological heritage management could be developed. Anita played with the attendants during the session the game which she designed and executed to break some prejudices in regard to archaeology and heritization within her student group in Sweden. She considered the fact that social inclusion is one of the key indicators for the creation of sustainable society, and that archaeology aimed to the participative and intersubjective construction of collective heritage can contribute to this social inclusion. The play, or the game, so to say, had a very positive effect on the audience. It made us think about the engagement of the public, especially in regard to our personal or cultural heritage. As member of Incipit, Rocio opted that public institutions have an obligation to provide thoughtful solutions to social problems. As a part of a broader program and through a process of knowledge transfer, Incipit offers an advisory service to help launch socially innovative, participative projects of entrepreneurship, which you might know, of course, which have an added value and demonstrable social impact. All right, so overall we can conclude that archaeology is indeed, through various ways, part of the concept of sustainability, sustainable practices, and thus of sustainable development. Utilizing this position will hopefully push both heritage management and the archaeological practice into a new level of professional conduct. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes if you have one question for Krijn. If not, we go for the next speaker.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, just one.
What exactly is sustainability? You didn't define it, so...
No.
That was my question.
It was actually defined
I wasn't there, so...
in the meeting.
Inform me.
So it basically is a construct of 4 different pillars, which I briefly mentioned. So economic, social, cultural, and educational. So those 4 pillars combined, in the nexus of those 4 pillars, you have sustainability. And if you apply that to working together with local communities, you can use it in the way of sustainable development, which actually is, so you can use it in a constructive way rather than in a passive sentence.
It's an answer, but still I don't understand.
No, but I think we need more time if you
Okay,
really want to understand. But
yeah, maybe you can speak later on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes, this is one of the key questions I tried to, in my introduction, try to highlight. The question, what are we sustaining?
Exactly.
But we will see that there are several case studies, and I think Sander will give us some elements.
One of the final slides in Glasgow was very, very clear, so it could be useful to show it.
Okay. After the coffee break.
Yeah, but the whole day is, framed towards sustainability. So
yes.
hopefully at the end of the day we can come to a sort of conclusion.
Thank you very much, Krijn.